welcome to another edition of the Colllapse Morning Wake-Up Call here on the Doomstead Diner. Last week I put up a video regarding extinction, oncoming extinction that many people predict, and lots of issues come up that are tangential to that and impact on it in terms of, how can we best combat this threat as it looms large in our visions, our respective visions. Not everybody's, of course, but a growing segment of the population is becoming aware of this problem. Well, there is, of course, the internet and communicating via that method, which I do and numerous other people do. In fact, if you're watching this video right now, you're doing it. So, we are communicating our concerns via the net. And then there is conferences. Conferences are held in various places in the world every year, multiple times a year, because there are multiple agencies and groups that are concerned with these problems. You've got the IPCC, you've got the UN, you've got Greenpeace, endless, really, I think would be the word for the number of conferences that go on. And, lots of people, scientists, want to go to these conferences and express their opinions, which are sometimes more knowledgeable than the average Joe Sixpack, but not always. And sometimes they're actually counterproductive, and these people are paid for shills of the energy industry, but that's another story entirely. I'll save that one for another broadcast. And to get to these conferences, they got to fly, because they're all over the world. They're in no fixed place, and these folks don't live near them. And so these folks, who are climate activists and climate concerned, are hit on with the criticism that they're hypocrites. Okay? And are they really? That's the question for the day. What does it mean to be a hypocrite on the climate and environment issues when you're part of the society that is currently running this system? And I guess the first person to get hit on this was Al Gore. And we've got an ad. Great. Who, if you recall, ran for president, I think won the popular vote but lost in the Electoral College. That's kind of a recurring theme in American politics. I'm not sure on that, though, so don't quote me. I don't remember back that far too well. But anyway, Al Gore also is famous for producing a documentary film, An Inconvenient Truth. And it was about climate change, right, and the climate change problems. But at the same time, Al, back there, I've got him on video, I think, somewhere. Al flies around on airplanes to get to all these places. And at least, so he claims, he doesn't fly on private jets. But I don't think he flies coach class either. I pretty well would assume that he flies first class along with an entourage of security guards and so forth. So he's using up, a decent amount of jet fuel to go around the world and do all of this stuff and promote climate responsibility, if you will, and trying to do something about the problems that we have. And that, his goal is a good thing, even if the methodology is sometimes questionable, and as a politician, his motivations are questionable too. But does that make him a hypocrite? Well, not to my mind. Not in and of itself. Now, there are other aspects of Al Gore's life that do make him a hypocrite. For instance, Al owns a McMansion that is about 5 or 6 times the size of the average oversized McMansion, and uses about 10 or 20 times as much electricity as said average Joe Sixpack McMansion. And, in order to combat that criticism, Al went ahead and installed a bunch of solar panels on his roof of this place. But, you know what happened? In the succeeding years after installing these things, he consumed more energy, more electricity than he did before. And that's one of those issues that you have when you start to provide electricity or provide gas or whatever the energy source is that no matter what conservation methods you take, the consumption end of it continues to increase. And but that, now that's profligate. Al does not need to live in such a big house, and he certainly doesn't need to use up all that juice. I mean, how much do you really need? A few lights, your refrigerator, your computer, and, that's it. At least as far as I'm concerned. And my electric bill is, I don't know, $40 a month or something. Not too much. And then besides that, Al also owns not one, but 3 other places that he usually isn't in. Like the typical successful, quote-unquote, person in our society, he feels it's his right and privilege to own numerous domiciles, which most of the time he doesn't occupy. They're empty, but they're still using up electricity because the refrigerators are still on, the heating system still has to be kept running, that's run by electricity, the water pump, all that stuff is run by electricity. So even though Al's not there, he's burning up electricity in all those other places. And everybody who owns multiple homes is doing that. Okay? These are all profligate consumers of electricity. Okay, but let's get back to aviation and the question of flying. And is that really a problem? And trying to keep all my videos going here is still a work in progress on these videos. Sorry, guys. But let me move to the next one. Now, aviation has been with us for a long time. Actually, it more or less predates the automobile in terms of its invention and usage. Although there were some types of steam cars and whatnot that came earlier. But, the Wright brothers got off the ground, or, in the very early 1900s, 1901, 2, 3, something like that. And aviation took off from there. And it's done a lot of things that brought the world together. And, that rapid travel that you get from airplanes helped develop this society and civilization. Not that that's necessarily a good thing, but it is something that we live with, right, to this day. And it has all sorts of problems now, which I've also done videos on, but let's just focus on its current use in traveling around to combat climate change and so forth. When you fly in an airplane, you're burning jet fuel, and that's carbon that's going into the atmosphere. And it's very obvious to everybody. And the claim is then made that, hey, these guys don't really need to do that. What they could do instead is communicate over the internet, because that's so much cleaner. Okay? They stay home, they're not burning jet fuel, right? And they're not burning fuel in their cars on the way to the airport either. But here's the deal. The fucking internet burns up more electricity and more power every year than all the planes flying combined together, much less what one person's seat on one airplane per year is dropping into the environment. Alright? The internet uses 50% more energy than all the airplanes, and that's currently. The internet is constantly growing and constantly consuming more and more energy. So, you cannot, in fact, be less hypocritical and more energy conscious and climate conscious by using the internet as your means of communication than you can by flying or by driving your car or by any other method that uses energy to facilitate these things. It's just not possible. So, should everybody then stop communicating and stop trying to develop a, global effort to stop this problem, or to, if not stop it, at least slow the motherfucker down? I don't think so. And I don't think it's hypocritical that people are still flying and still driving their cars and still eating the groceries that come from your food superstore that are all delivered there by truck and by barge and by container ship. And by the way, all those container ships put up more pollutants than anything else. They're burning a low-grade bunker fuel, high in sulfur emissions. They are dumping tons of carbon into the atmosphere every day, and each and every one of you who looks at Al Gore as a hypocrite, or any climate scientist who shows up at the IPCC conference as a hypocrite, you're a hypocrite too. Alright? Everybody's a fucking hypocrite. Or nobody's a hypocrite. And that's the way I feel about it. You're not a hypocrite because this is what it is. This is the society. This is the civilization that we are currently immersed in. It will continue on until it can't. Just like the monetary system. At some point it's going to fail. And, all of this business, the planes flying, the cars driving, the just-in-time shipping arriving, your internet connection, it's all going to fail. It's all going to go the way of the dinosaur. But until that time, until it comes, I think we need to use these things, use the internet, use the airplanes, use the cars, and eat well from the food superstore. And visit the Colllapse Cooking Zone also for good recipes. Let's, we have to be honest and realistic. And we're also not going to flip over to 17th century or 18th century living with horses plowing and so forth in a heartbeat. That's not going to happen either. So the procedure, or being rational and realistic about changing over our society to a more sustainable one, has to be one that takes these things into consideration and gradually, if that's possible, and I'm not sure it is, power down. Okay? Not power down all at once, although that might happen, but bring it within reason. Some things, like traveling on airplanes to go on vacation in Hawaii, that's a profligate use of airplanes and of putting carbon up in the air. But traveling to an IPCC conference, even though they don't generally get much done or accomplished, is an attempt at being beneficial. And similarly, using your car to drive to the food superstore isn't really profligate use of electricity, at least if it's too far to bike to. It's where you get food now. And the food comes in there by truck and by barge. That's how it goes, You can't do anything about that. So, to me, you're not a hypocrite. To other people, maybe you are. Okay, and you have to decide for yourself whether you are or aren't. Anyhow, that's enough for that rant for today. And make sure you join us inside the diner, as I always say, and discuss with us the oncoming collapse of industrial civilization. And that's all the news. This time until next time, here on the Colllapse Morning Update of the Doomsday Diner. Hasta la shit hits the fan day, folks.